This is an ABC News special report.
Good afternoon, I'm Tom Yamas. We continue to follow breaking news out of Europe, what is looking more and more like a terror attack in the heart of Barcelona. Police there tell us a van apparently rammed into several people that were walking along one of its busiest areas, Las Ramblas. Essentially, this is the 5th Avenue of Barcelona in the heart of the city there. We're being very careful with some of the images we're showing you because there are multiple victims that are laid out all across the floor. At this point right now, we understand that multiple people have died and there are several other victims. Now, one eyewitness telling Spanish media that this looked like the van came in speeding off a side street and just plowed into several people for 50 yards, basically plowing over them like corn. People went airborne. Our Terry Moran, our chief foreign correspondent, has been monitoring all these developments. And Terry, this is still an active situation because we understand the driver and possibly at least one other person are now holed up in a restaurant.
That's right, Tom. This is an ongoing fluid attack. A terror attack is what Spanish police are now calling this situation, in 2 phases. First, the van attack in this very packed, very popular with tourists area of downtown Barcelona. And now, what is apparently a hostage situation. Police sources confirming to ABC News that 2 gunmen have holed up in a restaurant nearby, apparently a Turkish restaurant near the site of that van attack. Police are negotiating with them. They are telling people who are in that district to shelter in place, and they are telling people who are not to stay away. They are also urging people not to share images of the carnage there, because what is out there right now shows that this has been a very serious attack. They also don't want to reveal to potential attackers their own movements. That place is now swarming with police up and down those streets as they secure the area, and they believe they have cornered 2 gunmen now holed up in a restaurant near the site of the van attack.
You have a major section of one of the biggest cities in Europe under lockdown right now in a hostage situation. ABC News' Will Gretzky arrived to the scene moments after this van attack. He joins us now live. Will, what did you see?
Tom, in what is normally a very busy part of Barcelona, everybody was moving very quickly away from the scene. The plaza right near where this attack took place is usually a very busy part of the city. Some consider it the center of the city. Everybody was walking very fast, some people running up the street. The tapas restaurants along Passeig del Gracia that are normally open at this time were closing their doors, asking people who were seated outside to go inside, and hotel bellmen were doing the same, asking people to go inside and clear the streets.
Our Will Gretzky, who was reporting from Barcelona right now. If you're just joining us live, we are following a terror attack that has just occurred in Barcelona. If these pictures look familiar, they are brand new, but this attack does feel very familiar because car attacks, van attacks have been happening all across Europe, even here in the United States. Our chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross, joins me now. Brian, when you look at these pictures, when you look at the damage on that van and now the situation, the hostage situation where the driver and possibly one other man are armed and holed up in a restaurant, this looks and sounds very familiar.
That's right, Tom. There have been no claims of any responsibility, and we don't know yet who might be responsible. But it has all the trademarks of the attacks we've seen, inspired by ISIS. ISIS has sent out word to its followers, attack this way, use vehicles, use anything you can. The most recently, 13 months ago, when 86 people were killed in Nice, France on Bastille Day, when a truck ran down a major highway there. Since then, the Berlin Christmas market attack, and then 2 separate attacks on London Bridge and Westminster Bridge in London. The toll has been huge in these attacks, at least 9 or 10 major attacks said to be inspired by ISIS. They continue to send out the word, if you can kill any way you can, use a vehicle.
Yeah, and we talk about the timing. Right now, it's 6:56 p.m. in Barcelona. When the attack happened, it was 5 o'clock. It's an area full of tourists, full of people. And from what we've heard from eyewitnesses, this van veered off a side street and just plowed into that pedestrian plaza.
Exactly. And we can see from the pictures we've seen so far that there was no indication of any barriers that would prevent that. That's something that's now taken place in New York City at Times Square. After a number of these attacks, they've begun to put up concrete barriers, so it's not easy to come off veer off a side street and run down a pedestrian area like the Ramblas.
We do know the president, who has been dealing with very delicate situations here at home, is now dealing with this international terrorism attack. We want to go now to Cecilia Vega, who is traveling with the president right now. Cecilia?
Yeah, Tom, we were told just a few minutes ago that President Trump has been briefed. We're told by the White House that the Chief of Staff, General John Kelly, is aware of the situation and is keeping the president up to speed on everything that is happening there in Spain. There's no word directly from the president himself just yet, but the First Lady, in fact, is the first one to offer public comments on what's happening there in Barcelona. She just tweeted a couple of minutes ago saying, quote, thoughts and prayers to Barcelona. We do know, Tom, also that there's been a warning from the State Department this afternoon. 2 American travelers in Spain there right now. Heather Nauert, the State Department spokeswoman, tweeting out that the State Department is closely monitoring events in Barcelona and that sending a word out to any Americans who are there to stay away.
Cecilia Vega for us. Anytime these terror attacks happen abroad, and they have happened here, in fact, we just had a car attack over the weekend, law enforcement all across the country set new precautions. I want to go to Pierre Thomas right now to tell us what some of the authorities are doing here at home.
Tom, FBI, DHS, and New York City officials are monitoring this very, very closely. Typically, the NYPD will step up patrols, have heavily armed units out in public display to deter any kind of potential act of terrorism. Right now, law enforcement here has been particularly concerned about these low-tech type attacks. Every month or so, they've been sending out notices to local law enforcement to be on guard and prepared for these kind of attacks. Tom, it's a great and growing concern here in the United States.
And almost impossible to defend. All right, Pierre, thanks so much. If you're just joining our coverage, we want to update you. We are following news of a terror attack in the heart of Barcelona, an apparent van attack. Police there say one person, possibly 2, drove a van at full speed into a pedestrian plaza, hitting several people. We know that multiple people have died and several others are injured. And as we've been following these stories for the last 2 years out of Europe, even here at home, these van attacks have been a preferred method of attack for terrorists across the globe. We're going to stay on top of this story throughout the afternoon. We're going to have a full update with our entire team on World News Tonight with David Muir. We now return to our scheduled programming.
This has been a special report from ABC News.